Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Succos shir. I've got on the handout 4 very beautiful ideas. I may have shared 1 or 2 of them in the past, but there's a lot of new things, even the one thing which I think I may have shared, that I want to add to it. There's some fabulous ideas to warm ourselves up this Succos, which I think is going to be very cold and wet here in sunny London, or not so sunny London, but some beautiful ideas. If you're listening online, please email me at j.golker@gmail.com. I'll send you the handout. The story goes that a fellow learnt Maseches Sukkah, and he knew it so well, he thought he did, that he's going to get tested. And who should test him? None other than the greatest living Torah scholar of the day, the Vilna Gaon. So he goes to the Vilna Gaon. He said he's finished Maseches Sukkah, learned it backwards and forwards, Gemara Tosfos, Rishonim, Achronim, and he would like to be tested. The Vilna Gaon threw a curveball in the very first question, which the guy was unable to answer. He was clearly a brave man. What was the question? The question was, how many times throughout the entire Masechta does it make reference to a kosher sukkah, and how many times to a posel sukkah? Now you can learn Maseches Sukkah 100 times, and you go through in the Gemara and the Rashi and Tosfos, but it's just a different level of learning to know how many times it makes reference to a kosher sukkah and to a posel sukkah. That's sort of not on anyone's radar apart from the Vilna Gaon. The guy was stumped, so the Vilna Gaon put him out of his misery and said to him, I'll tell you the clue. The clue is there are 2 ways to spell sukkah. Mole and choser. Mole, you spell it samach vav chaf hey, and choser, you spell it samach chaf hey. What's the difference? Samach vav chaf hey, let's say choser. Choser is samach chaf hey. Samach is 60, chaf is 20, hey is 5. 20 and 60 and 5 is 85. There are 85 references to a posel sukkah in the whole Maseches Sukkah. Sukkah spelt mole, full, samach vav chaf hey, is gematria 91, and there are 91 references to a kosher sukkah throughout the Masechta. Good. There's an amazing cheshek shlema. The cheshek shlema in the first blatt of Maseches Sukkah says the following. He says an amazing insight. Throughout the Gemara and Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam and the Rif and everyone, you look in those texts, Sukkah is spelt mole, samach vav chaf hey. But if you look throughout Tanakh, with one exception, throughout Tanakh, Sukkah is spelt choser, samach chaf hey. The question is why? Why is it this strange split? Says the Cheshek Shlema, the most amazing answer. Let's take a look inside. B'chol sifrei hashas, Bavli v'Yerushalmi v'Rav Alfas v'Rosh, that's the Rif and the Rosh, nitfas tefas Sukkah b'vav. Acha samach. There is a vav after the samach. Avon nira du ta soifa. Dari kol tefas Sukkah nimsa b'Tanakh. Ksif Sukkah. I think it's just a typo. Because in Tanakh, apart from one exception we'll see, it's spelled without a vav. How come? Also, I've seen in the Pri Chaim, B'shachak HaSukkos Perek Dalet, V'oid Be'ezeh Sifrei Mukubalim, and other Kabbalistic works, B'sukkah Mole B'gematria Tzadi Aleph, the gematria of the word Sukkah, 91, Kaminyan Shem Yudke Vovke, V'alef Dalet, Ayin Shom. I.e., listen to this, the 2 most common names of Hashem are Yudke Vovke and Aleph Dalet Nun Yud. What is the gematria of Yudke Vovke? 26. What is the gematria of Aleph Dalet Nun Yud? 65. 65 plus 26 is 91, which is gematria Sukkah. So when you're sitting in a Sukkah, Al Pi Kabbalah, you're sort of enveloped by a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Yeah? Shmuel Kimcha used to love the Dvar Torah. Do you remember the minimum size of a Sukkah is 1 wall, 2 walls, and a tefach, which is like a hug, right? So it's this, right? It's like a hug, and therefore you're enveloped by Kodesh Baruch Hu's presence, as it were. But it's manifested in the Shemus themselves. The Yud Kei Vav Kei and Aleph Dalet Nun Yud adds up to 91. Says the Cheshek Shlema? What does that mean? So, in short, he says the following: there is a concept that Ein Hashem Molei ve'Ein Hakisei Molei ad she'imo chazar shel HaMolek, which means that the Hashem's name is not complete and his throne is not complete until Amalek is destroyed and Moshiach will come. That's what we say in Parshas Beshalach, Ki keis al yad ka, that case is not kisei. Rashi says, why not kisei? And why ka, yud, hey, is only half of the name of Hashem? That's an idea, says Rashi, that the shame of Hashem and the kisei is not complete until Mashiach will come. Okay. Therefore, says the Cheshek Shlema, throughout Tanakh, the shame Hashem is not complete because it's historical. It's pre-Moshiach times. Sefer, the whole Torah and the whole of Nevi'im, the whole of Kesuvim is pre-Messianic times, and therefore the correct way to spell the shame of Hashem, as it were, which is Merumaz in Sukkah, is Choser, is lacking, is deficient. So Sukkah is spelt pre-Messianic times, Samach Chof Hei. But when Moshiach will come, the name of Hashem will be complete. Therefore, Gemara, Shulchan Aruch, Rambam, Rif, which is normative, which is referring to post-Moshiach times as well, you can spell the shame of Hashem properly. And therefore, Sukkah is spelt Mole, Samach Vov Chafei, which is 91, which is a remez to the two shames of Hashem, spelt properly. Beautiful. So pre-Moshiach, you spell Sukkah Samach Chafei, and that's why throughout Tanakh, it's spelt Choser. Post-Moshiach, i.e., in times beyond now, such as the Gemara and Shulchan Aruch, etc., are referring to, you spell Sukkah full because that's the Shem Hashem will be Mole. Beautiful. There is one exception in Tanakh where Sukkah is spelt Mole. What is that? There's a pasuk, Vayhi b'sholem Sukkah u'ma'onosei b'tziyai. The one time in Tanakh where Sukkah is spelt Mole is referring to post-Moshiach times. Beautiful. Exactly as the Cheshek Shlomo is saying. So you see a remarkable idea in the very word of the word Sukkah, which we're about to miss Hashem in joy. It's referring to the shameless of Hashem, and like an aspiration that, please God, the shame of Hashem will be Mole once the seed of Amalek will be erased, eradicated, and the shame will be complete once again. Okay. Now, with that in mind, that takes us on to another idea. If you look at box number 2, the Shari Tshuva says in Siman Tov Reish Chafei. Now, this I got from a beautiful sefer called the Yunei Chaim. The Yunei Chaim was written by Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel was the Rav of the Shtibel of the shul where I grew up, and he was a tremendous Talmid Chacham. And he's got 2 volumes on Parsha, and this is from Chelek Beis in page Kuf Tzadivov, and he says the following: B'Shari Tshuva Siman Tov Reish Chafei Hevi b'Shem HaMekubalim. He quotes Kabbalists. Sheyarbe b'tzedakah b'erev Sukkos. This Wednesday, erev Sukkos, we should be marbe b'tzedakah. There's an Indian to give tzedakah. V'shamaiti migisi harav Kasriel David Kaplan Zatzal. Says by Shmuel, I heard from my brother-in-law, the late Dayan Kaplan, who was a Dayan here in the London Basin, shezeh merumas b'mashe Sukkah b'gematria tzedakah. That Sukkah has the same gematria as tzedakah. Okay, now, whenever you hear this, you've got to just double check this. Hang on a second. Sukkah is gematria what? Well, we just said. Samach Vov Chaf Hei is gematria 91. Tzedakah, Tzadi is 90, Daled is 4, Kuf is 100, Hey is 5, that's 199. How can they say that the remez to give tzedakah on Erev Sukkah, a special Indian, Al Pi Kabbalah, is because the gematria of Sukkah is the same as gematria tzedakah? It's out pretty badly. No one koilel even. So what's going on? V'hinei, hadova poshut she'ein ze nochen. It's not true. Shari gematria shel Sukkah hu tishim ve'echad, v'tzedakah hu masayim chosa echad. Sukkah's 91, tzedakah's 199. Next paragraph. V'hiz beligisi, my brother-in-law Zatzal, Dayan Kaplan, explained to me, b'shem ha'adna bal Kedushas Tziyun miBobov, an idea from the Bobov Rebbe, the Kedushas Tziyun. Shemitzad hadin Sukkah kasheira b'shtayim kehilchasa, dahainu doifen shel zayin tefachim u'shlish safilu tefach. Like I just said, the minimum size for a sukkah is 2 walls, 1 wall, 2 walls, and the third wall with just a tefach, not big. We know the minimum height of a sukkah is 10 tefachim. Anyone here been to Neot Kedumim? It's a place in Israel. It's a great Cholamoid trip, especially sukkahs. You can go there all year round, I think. But they have, from the Mishnah in Sukkah, all different types of sukkahs. They've even got, a sukkah al gabe gamel. They've got a camel walking around with a sukkah on his back. But they've got all different types. And you've got the biggest possible sukkah, which is probably the height of this room, and you've got the smallest sukkah, which is about that high. It's tiny. You've got to crawl in. So it's about that high. So you've got a wall, you've got the minimum smallest possible sukkah is 2 walls and a third of tefach, a height of 10 tefachim. Okay, now we're going to do a bit of maths, but it's not going to hurt. Okay? Nimtza. Shetzorich gimel defonas, shnayim shem asor tefachim. Al shiva, the minimum width of a sukkah, each wall is 7 tefachim. If the height is 10 tefachim and the width is 7 tefachim, what's the surface area? 70. Okay? 7 times 10 is 70. Don't be so scared. If you've got 2 walls, then what's 2 times 70? 140. Okay, don't worry, I'll do it. That's 140. And you've got the last wall, the one tefach with 10 tefachim high, then your last wall is going to have a surface area of 10. So you've got 70 and 70 and 10, which gives you 150. Sachakol kufnun. And then of course you've got to have the schach, which is going to be 7 by 7 tefachim. 7 by 7 is 49. So 150 plus 49 is? 199. Fantastic, which is the gematria of tzedakah. So when the Mekubalim say that sukkah is the same gematria as tzedakah, that's what they mean. Tzedakah is 199, and 199 is the minimum dimensions of a sukkah. Yeah?
Surely the schach is going to be in the square.
Yeah, but without al shem haschach kari sukkah, the first Rashi in Masechah Sukkah, without the schach, you haven't got a sukkah. The surface area of your sukkah.
But your sukkah isn't the square shape.
Correct.
So why would it have the square schach?
Because you need because your sukkah is an area, is a surface area. If this is your sukkah, here, this is your sukkah, right? You're true. I've got one wall here, and a little bit over there, right? But I'm actually where am I sitting? I'm sitting in this area, and therefore there's schach over my head. How much is the minimum schach I've got? 7 by 7 tvachim.
So that whole thing can be yours.
Yeah, that the whole thing is a sukkah. In other words, if you square off the 7 by 7 tvachim, I can sit in the whole area, even though it's open one and larger on the second side as well. Okay, so you've got 199. Beautiful, good. Next paragraph. Valzeh hoisif gisi. And my brother-in-law, Dayan Kaplan Zatzal, added, Shari sukkah bli karka psula. Okay, you've got to add something. He wants to add something to the Bob of Rebbe's idea. You can't have a sukkah without ground. In fact, the ground of the sukkah has kedusha. If you're makbid on mayim achronim, you're not allowed to just pour it onto the ground in the sukkah because the very floor of the sukkah has kedusha. Moreover, therefore you've got to add the 7 by 7 on the ground as well. Not just the schach, but the ground also has kedusha, so you add 49. What's 199 plus 49? 248. Which of course parallels the 248 limbs of a person. That's one of the very rare mitzvahs where our very essence, our whole essence, our whole being is in the sukkah. Which other example do we have of a whole being mekayim the mitzvah of being in somewhere? The other one, the classic one, is mikvah. But he says, you put a talus on, you shake a little of that, they're touching parts of the body, but not all of the body. Chutz miroiv tvila sheim rak hechsha mitzvah, and tvila, for the majority of time, it's just a hechsha mitzvah to facilitate something, to get to a degree of kedusha or tahara. Vayisafti. So therefore, that's what Dayan Kaplan added. Very nice. So you've got the ground, which adds 49 to the 199, which gives you 248, which is a remez to the fact that our whole body, all 248 limbs, are covered and enclosed by the sukkah. Did you have a question?
What the 248 was we just said.
Okay, good. Then, listen to this. One more thing. This is the last mathematical bit, don't worry. Vayisafti al zeh neifich mishali. Says to Rabbi Shmuel, I want to add a little bit for myself. The Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, at the very beginning of Gimel Amud Aleph, Shebeimois HaMashiach, in the times when Mashiach will come, Yishalu ha'umas ma'akadosh baruch hu, sheyitzin le'atorah. The non-Jewish world will say to God, hey, we also want the Torah. Why did you give it just to the Jews? Give it to us as well. For but Hashem will test them. Okay, we'll test you. See if you can keep the Torah. How will He test them? The mitzvah sukkah. He'll test them with the mitzvah of sukkah. Try this one out. Says the Gemara of Avodah Zarah, and they will kick it. They will kick it away and reject it. And they'll leave the sukkah. And God will laugh at their that Hashem is laughing on high. V'hinei mitzvah sukkah meramezes al kol gufel shel adam. The mitzvah of sukkah is a remez for the ability for us to be fully encapsulated, fully absorbed, immersed in a mitzvah. Because all our 248 limbs are going into the sukkah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hinting at them. Even if they keep one of the mitzvahs are safe, even if they're keeping one, because 248 also represents 248 mitzvahs, 248 positive mitzvahs, even if they keep one out of the 248 positive mitzvahs, they haven't got the ability, as it were, to fully immerse their whole being into a mitzvah. Like Yitzchak said to Yishmael, you're boasting that you did bris milah with one Eva. If Hashem said to me, offer up your whole body, I wouldn't protest. That was the beginning of the Akedah. So, to summarize, what's the Yonei Chaim saying? Something very beautiful, which really just adds to the first idea that we shared this evening. The gematria of the word sukkah 91 is not a coincidence. It's merames to the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with us in the sukkah. It's the shemus of Hashem, etc. But what the Shari Tshuva is saying is that the gematria of sukkah equals gematria of stokah. What does that mean? It doesn't. Sukkah's 199. Sorry, sukkah's 91. Stokah's 199. No, what it means is the dimensions of a sukkah add up to 199, as we've just described. 7 one side by 10 tefachim, that's 70, the other wall, and the third wall is 10, so that's 150, plus the schach is 49, 199, beautiful. As Lion Kaplan, plus the 49 of the floor, because without a sukkah, the floor also has kedusha, gives you 248, a remez to the fact, that there are 248 mitzvahs, but also our entire being is absorbed in it. And Rabbi Shmuel added that extra piece, that Dafka, he tests the non-Jewish world with the mitzvah of sukkah, which they will reject, the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, because we are sort of fully immersed in this, and they're just rejecting one out of the 248 mitzvahs, and akin to the conversation between Yitzchak and Yishmael. Okay, let's press on. A lot to do very quickly. You know what? We're not going to do it. Let's go through number 4. Ushpizin, okay? Now, I don't know about you, but one of the features of Ushpizin, of Sukkot, is Ushpizin. And again, I don't know exactly how it works for many other homes, but we generally remember the first night, sometimes the second night, and it's pretty much downhill after that. We try, but maybe we're not Hasidish, maybe we don't put enough value in it, and I must be honest with you, I apologize, but I haven't got a good track record with the Ushpizin. I say goodbye to the Sukkah. I love the mitzvah of Sukkah, it's one of my favorite mitzvahs, but I'm not so good when it comes to Ushpizin, probably because I haven't looked into it enough and understand it. But I saw something this year which I hope will help me correct my ways. And that is, I saw something in Rabbi Emmanuel Bernstein's Sefer, which basically refers to a Michtav Meliyahu. So I looked up the Michtav Meliyahu, and I'd like to share that with you, because I think it's a very beautiful idea. Ushpizin, what does that mean? Miss Hashem, this Wednesday night, when we go into the Sukkah, all being well, we say the Yerotzim as we enter the Sukkah. And we make reference to the guests that we have, the very esteemed guests that we have in each of our sukkahs, and we know, we're familiar with it. Where does this come from? The source for it is a Zohar in Parshas Emor, which I've got there in paragraph 4. Take a look. Rav Hamnuna Saba katava ayel sukkah. Rav Hamnuna Saba, the elder, Rav Hamnuna, when he would go into a sukkah, havachadi, he would rejoice. And he would stand on the inside of the entrance to his sukkah. And he would say, Nazmin lo shpizin, let us invite the guests. So shpizin literally means guests. And he would stand up on his feet. And he would say that you should dwell in sukkahs for 7 days. Come and sit, my esteemed guests. Now, that's the background. We know that the mitzvah of Sukkos connects to the relationship we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And there's lots to say about this. In a previous shir, and if you want to listen to on Torah anytime, it's a very Geshmak shir, there are the 10 questions that you can ask on Masechah Sukkah, on the mitzvah, the yontif of Sukkah, and one answer is answering everything. But the theme really is that what Sukkot celebrates, according to the Vilna Gaon and Shir Hashirim, is the return of the unnekovet. And it's the connection we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you connect with someone, the best way to connect is to know that person and to share, to explain, to have a connection, to get to know that person better. And more so, when it comes to our connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's to emulate the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara says, you should be like God. What does that mean? It says the Gemara, He's an all-consuming fire. How can we be like God? What it means is, says the Gemara, you have to emulate the ways of Hashem. Now, with that in mind, let's now look at this Michtav Melio, paragraph 4. Inyan ho shpizen hu, hadveikus b'midaseihem. The idea of the Yoshpizen is emulating the midas of these very 7 elevated guests, which each one represents Zayin Spheres HaTachtoinus, the bottom 7 spheres. There are 10 spheres, sometimes broken up as into the first 7, and you'll see that each of the Yoshpizen emulate, if you like, or represent one of these 7 spheres. And since we're talking from a sort of human perspective, we go bottom up. We go from the lowest one upwards. Because that's how it works. That's sort of the progress. Okay, this is the Seder. Aleph. The first one is Chesed, which of course is Midas Avram Avinu, which is the middle of Ava. That is the first one. I.e., if we want to strengthen our connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we emulate the midas embodied by the Yoshpizen with the midah of the guest of each day. So on the first day of Sukkot, we're focusing on the midah of Chesed, which is the midah of Avram, the guest of the first day. Base. Pachad Yitzchok. Who's next? Day 2. Pachad Yitzchok. Lahavin b'seichel shalin niyare shenipared me'atayv. To have yiras shamayim, that we're scared that we shouldn't do things which would disconnect from the good path that we've chosen. Gimel. What's the third one? Tiferes. Emes midosoi shel Yaakov. That's the midah of the emes of Yaakov Avinu. Shenovin b'tzaref ha'pachad. What is Tiferes? What is emes? Emes means a synthesis between numbers 1 and 2. When you take Ava and Chesed, and you take Yira and Pachad and Gvura, and you combine the two, you get Tiferes, which is the harmony between numbers 1 and 2, and that gives you Emes. Ima Chesed v'nagia l'shifas Emes, that's the middle of Emes. That's day 3. Day 4, Dalet. V'novin oid shebiyos shifaseinu le'emes nar belisasek b'torah lishma. Once we've achieved an Emes, we should then learn Torah, which is eternal. Bechinas Netzach Midosa Shel Moshe, which is Netzach, which is the mid of Moshe Rabbeinu, who's the guest on day 4. Hey, v'gam nechazek es al yoseinu al yedei shenichbesh es hara. Then we should strengthen to overpower evil. V'nishtamish be'rak l'tachlis hatoiv, to use everything for a good purpose. Bechinas b'chol levavcha. The concept of, like we say in Shema, b'chol levavcha, b'shnei yitzrecha, with our midah tov and midah ra. Shehi bechinas haid, which ultimately is the midah of haid. Midas Aaron, which is the midah of Aaron HaKohen, Oves HaBris, Mekarvan Torah. He takes people and he brings them closer to Torah. She'yiskarvel Hashem b'derech mitoich shelo lishma, i.e., through shelo lishma mitoich you come to do lishma. Al yedei sheher Elohem es avosov v'yispaysheh b'fonov me'era b'socham, and that sort of dissipates the bad and helps us focus on the good, which ultimately is the midah of Hod, which is Aaron. Number 6, that takes us to the 6th guest. Which focuses on the breaking of the Yetzer Hara and in a more permanent manner, which basically is Yesod Midas Yosef, which is the concept of Yesod, which is the midah of Yosef, and then finally Midas David, because Malchus Ol Malchus Shemayim is Malchus is always David, which is the last one. But the point is, we now understand a little bit of an understanding of what the Yoshpizen are. The Yoshpizen is that Sukkot celebrates our connection between Hashem and Klal Yisrael, and therefore, the more we emulate Hashem, the closer the connection. So really, Sukkot is about our connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The way we strengthen that connection is by emulating the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the midas are manifested by these 7 spheres represented by each one of the guests. So you go through one by one, and you can see how best to emulate the midas that we can ultimately create a closer connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So let me just summarize what we've done. We'll leave over number 3, Miz Hashem, for another time. But just to summarize the 3 ideas that we've said, the person went to the Vilna Gaon. How do you spell sukkah with a vav, without a vav? He said, how many times does it make a reference to a kosher sukkah, apostle sukkah? And the guy had no idea. 9185. A reference to the fact that sukkah is spelt mole and choser. Spelling it mole is 91, is the full way of spelling Hashem's name, because sukkah 91 is actually the gematria of Yud Kei Vav Kei plus Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, and therefore, when Mashiach will come, the shame of Hashem and the kisei will be mole, and therefore that's the full spelling. Mashein Kain, pre-Mashiach, it's always going to be a deficient spelling, 85, and that's why throughout Tanakh, which is past looking, you always have it spelt choser, because the pre-Mashiach, the name of Hashem is not complete, but post-Mashiach, it will be complete, and that's why in Gemara and Shulchan Aruch, which will endure beyond then, it's spelt mole. And the only exception is that pasuk, which is referring to Messianic times, Vahi b'sholem sukkah. Remarkable. Then you have the lovely idea of the Yonei Chaim, the connection between sukkah and staka. The Shari Tshuva says, b'shem u'kabolim, there's an Indian to give staka on Erev Sukkos. You can't give on Sukkos, of course. Yeah, it's muktzah money. But why? What's the idea? Because the gematria of sukkah and staka are together the same. Not true. No, what it means is the dimensions of the sukkah, that, as we said, the minimum share of the sukkah gets, with the schach, gets to 199, which is the same gematria as staka. It says Dain Cap, and you add the floor as well, because it has kedusha, that gives you 248, which is a remez to one of the uniquenesses of sukkah is that we are fully immersed, and our whole body sits in the sukkah. And then Rabbi Shema adds that thing. That's why Dafka, they're tested with this particular challenge of sukkah. And lastly, the Ushpizin is sort of a deeper concept on understanding what the Ushpizin are really about, because sukkah is celebrating the connection between Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the way we emulate Hashem is sort of as a means to make that closer connection by emulating the midas embodied by the Ushpizin, then the midah of the guest of each day, then we can create that stronger connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, I wish you all a very wonderful Yom Tov. Thank you very much for inviting me, and enjoy it. Kol Tov.